from the latest Action Network podcast.
The Sun Belt Championship in Boone, North Carolina, a rematch of last year's championship game where App State won. They were 17.5-point favorites. I believe ULL covered, and that's something that ULL has done a lot under Billy Napier. They've just been a covering machine the past two seasons. And this line's sitting at App State -6, 6.5, over under 56. These teams met, and App State's owned this series. I think they're 7-0 against ULL. These teams met earlier in the year, and App State was an underdog, a rare underdog in conference. They were a 1.5 to 2 point underdog at ULL. They ended up winning by 10, but the game was very close, and there were some questionable coaching decisions by ULL. There were, they were stopped at the goal line on 4th and goal. They were 0 for 2 on 4th down. A couple questionable penalties. So the game really was a lot closer than, it was just a 10-point spread in the end. But I think ULL, and keep in mind that App State, they're deep at receiver, but they will be without Sutton, one of their best receivers, and who had 2 catches for 60 yards in that game, one of their most explosive playmakers who's out for the year with an injury. ULL comes in with one of the most explosive rushing attacks in the country. App State was able to slow them down a little bit. They have an excellent offensive line. I also think Levi Lewis, who had his best passing game last year, has developed into a much better passer than the first meeting when these two teams met. I think that can help. I think ULL has a shot here. I think that line was about right when they met the first time. I have App State rated about a point or two better. So I think that this line should be, maybe around 3 or 4, 4 or 5 tops. So I bought the 7, took a little at 6.5. But I think ULL has a real shot here. This should be a thriller. What do you see here in the Sun Belt Championship?
Yeah, same here. I'm invested on ULL. It opened up at around 7, 6.5, and then took a major dip down to 3.5. Opened up at circa at 6, and then everybody else decided, oh boy, we better go back up to 6, 6.5. There has been some resistance here in the last 24 hours, so it looks like the number could come down, possibly to a 5.5 and a 5. So we'll see what happens there. But there's just so much going on with this game. I mean, you mentioned what happened in the first game. I was out of my mind upset with my ULL bet in this initial game. We had some of the craziest things happen in this game. Billy Napier punted in the fourth quarter from 4th and 1 in the midfield, down by 3. App State went on to have a 19-play drive. I've never seen a 19-play drive with the Sun Belt refs spotting the ball advantageously for the Mountaineers. PI flags on a red zone play are being thrown from an official at the 50-yard line. I mean, it was just suspect. The entire game was suspect. So you're right. App State has owned this series. They've won all 7 games since 2014. And how much have they owned this series? UL has never finished in single digits in a loss. So I think the line is inflated. I have this, line the same as we had before. I have it App State -1.5 on their own home field. SP Plus has this at 3.7. So the number is, extremely generous for ULL if you want to get involved on that side. I mean, the over is only hit just once in this series. I think for as much heat as the offenses can bring for both of these teams, people don't realize these two teams are really good on defense. App State's top 15 in success rate on defense, while ULL is more of a bend, don't break. They'll give up a lot of yards. They're 119th in opponent rushing success rate, but they're 13th in defensive finishing drive. So once you get to the 40-yard line, the Raging Cajuns defense really starts to stand up. App State is really good in opponent third down conversions. They're top 10. I like the under in this game. I like the points on ULL. They just got to get it out of their head that they can win this game. They can win in Boone. They can beat these guys. I know it's got to be on their minds that they've never won this game. They never covered this game, and it's never been within 10 points. But hey, here we are. We're going to take the Cajuns, and I'm going to take an under too.
Look, ULL has an outstanding offense, maybe arguably the best of all of the group of 5 teams. Memphis is up there, and there's some other teams, but ULL is right there. I mean, this is a team that's, I think, leading the nation in rushing yards per attempt. They're 5th in rushing success rate. They're also top 15 in passing success rate. So, I mean, this offense is really good. The App State offense is also really good. I mean, you're talking top 15 also in rushing, top 25 in passing success rate. They're going to be able to move the ball here against ULL's defensive line. I think at the end of the day, what this comes down to is App State's defense is a little better than ULL's. I think ULL's offense is a little better than App State's. App State should be able to just grind the ball down the field because the ULL defensive line is really poor. I mean, you're talking 127th in line yards. They just are going to get pushed by the App State offensive line. But I do think that this ULL offense with a more confident Lewis can move the ball on the ground. And then the X factor here is the special teams, where ULL will have an advantage. They have the more reliable kicker. They have a better punter. And they have one of the most explosive kick returners, one of, I think, 4 or 5 returners in the country that's averaging over 30 yards per kick return. So special teams, ULL advantage there as well. You have your Aussie punter who can boom the ball. Ortega is a very reliable kicker. App State's kicker has a big leg, but he'll miss a 25-yarder, a 30-yarder, very inconsistent. So I think that that's an X factor as well. So I think these two teams are not far apart. Don't be surprised if the special teams are a factor.
Another thing for ULL that people don't realize, they're number 1 in the nation in havoc allowed on offense. They do not beat themselves. They do not give the ball up. They do not give you gifts. Now, we're going to talk about Hawaii later. You want to talk about giving gifts. They're not Hawaii. They're a solid investment. They've just got to get it done.
And by the way, true road dogs in conference championship games are 14-5 against the spread, covering by an average margin of over a touchdown since 2005. That includes Louisiana's cover last year in Boone in a straight-up loss. But something to keep in mind, we mentioned App State hasn't turned it over. They've lost 2 fumbles all year. That's it. That leads the nation, by the way. The fewest fumbles lost all season. You want to talk about, a team that's due to lose a couple fumbles and deal with some turnover regression. It's right here. And like I said, with Billy Napier, he's 18-7 against the spread, covering by almost a touchdown per game. This ULL team just continues to be disrespected by the market, and they continue to beat the close.
Billy Napier is just one of those names that's on the list. I know he's on Arkansas's short list, and so he could be trying to add a very big bullet point to his resume here with a victory.